Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Homewrecker podcast. What's that look for?
The way you paused. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. One of these days, we'll get a nice, solid opening, a more polished sounding opening. Welcome to the Homewrecker podcast. I am the Golden Greek, Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous wife, the lovely Monique. Monique, how are you doing today?
I am spectacular, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic, as always. Spectacular. That's a good word.
Thank you. I'm very excited about our episode today.
Yeah, this was your idea, the fruit of your brain. What?
The fruit of my brain.
I don't know what I was trying to say there. It was the product of your, came from your, it was your idea.
It was my
Jeez,
idea.
Crow.
Wow.
Trying to be, trying to sound intelligent and wordy.
And you feel miserably.
That's what I get for that. So before we get into what we're talking about on today's show, do we have any plugs, anything you want to talk about before we get moving?
Sure. If you're interested in a tarot reading or any organite, go to tarotbymonique.com. I made some cool new dragons that I'll be putting out on my website soon. And if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can schedule a free 20-minute consult. Go to innerstandingshypnosis.com. And if you're not ready for a 101, check out my digital downloads. It's a good low price, it's affordable, and you get to use it as many times as you want because it's yours.
There you have it. So let's just jump right into it. And what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be actually running down our top 10 favorite Twilight Zone episodes. And we're talking about the classic Twilight Zone from the 1960s. Yes, the Rod Serling, the originals, the black and whites, the classics, the best of the bunch.
This was so hard.
It actually was pretty difficult. And I'm looking at my list and I'm like, oh, I should have put this one there in that number instead and whatever. But it's like anything. Like our kids ask us all the time, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite band? What's your favorite show? What's your favorite movie? All that stuff. Because they're at that age now where that's like their thing. And I'm horrible at that stuff because I don't have a favorite anything. It's whatever my mood is in that particular day. Or with music, it tends to go in like monthly cycles. Like I'll be on a like a Metallica kick for like 6-7 weeks or something, and then I'll just all of a sudden I kind of want to listen to Def Leppard for the week or what. That's just how I am. So I don't have like a favorite that I can think of. I just have a lot of stuff that I like. So this was tough for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me doing it, I had a handful of the ones I know I love. But then it's like, oh, and there's this one. Oh, and there's this one. Oh, I love this one too. And I really had to narrow down by the ones that made me feel a certain way when I watch them. And even though there are a lot others that do that too, I think I just did the best I could.
That's all we can do.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, so whittling them down to a top 10, and that's each of us has our own top 10, and we have not talked to each other about what episodes we chose. We did this completely independently of each other, so neither of us knows what we put on our list or anything like that. So, and if we have time, we're going to get into maybe some honorable mentions at the end as well. So that's how this is going to flow. So, without further ado, let's get into our top 10 Twilight Zone episodes. Why don't you start us off with your number 10, my lady? All right.
My number 10 is The Hunt. This is from season 3, episode 19. And when I do mine, I'll give a little synopsis about what it's about in case you're not familiar with it. So in The Hunt, an old man, Hyder Simpson, goes off for a raccoon hunt with his hound dog, Rip. When Rip goes after a raccoon in the water, Simpson dives in after his dog, and we only see the raccoon emerging on our end as viewers. When we find Simpson and Rip, they're waking up beside the water, and they return home, and Simpson finds that neither his wife, his preacher, or neighbors can see or hear him. They all think he's dead. Walking along a road, passing a graveyard, he notices that there's a fence he never seemed to notice there before, and he decides to follow it. And then he comes to a gate, and there's a gatekeeper there who explains to him that that's the entrance to heaven. but dogs are not allowed. Simpson is infuriated his dog can't come and decides to just take his dog and continue down the road with Rip. On the path, he meets an angel who is dispatched to bring him to heaven. Simpson learns that the road is actually the road to hell, and dogs are not allowed because they can smell the brimstone and would have warned him. To me, watching this episode, I think part of it is the fact with the dog, because I love animals. And I think about how, he refused to leave his dog behind, and that just meant something to me because I would have done the same thing. And it makes you wonder what kind of person would leave their dog behind in a situation like that. And like, would you really want to go to heaven if you couldn't even bring your dog with you? So the other part of that is he didn't care what he was told. He went with what he felt was right. And that was the other aspect of this episode that I loved. Imagine you find out you died. You and your dog are dead. And you're told you can't bring your dog to heaven. And maybe some people would be like, okay, cool, whatever, I'm going to heaven. But for me, it's that feeling inside, that bond, that connection, that love. And that's not right. So he did what was right. And it really emphasizes why you have to go with your gut and your heart when you feel something is wrong or right.
Moral lessons from the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm. What was yours? What was your number 10?
So my number 10 was also was a season 1 episode. It was episode number 22, as my glasses fall off my face here. Excuse me. And it's called The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. It originally aired March 4th of 1960, or in 1960, excuse me. So this one, I love this episode.
I do too.
After what is at first taken to be a meteor speeds overhead, Maple Street experiences a total power failure. Appliances, telephones, even cars. Pete Van Horn sets off on foot to find out the cause, but Tommy, a young reader of Sci-Fi, says that he knows human-looking aliens have infiltrated Maple Street. At first, this is laughed off, but when Mr. Goodman's car inexplicably starts up for a few seconds, suspicion falls on him, bolstered by the fact that a neighbor has seen him looking up at the stars late at night. As evening falls, Steve Brand tries to get others to remain calm, but when a mysterious figure walks toward them in the dark, panic breaks out. Charlie Farnsworth grabs a neighbor's rifle and fires, killing the menace, who turns out to be the returning Pete Van Horn. Madness prevails. Charlie is accused of being the alien, then Tommy. As the lights of various houses flash on and off, full-scale rioting breaks out. From nearby, 2 aliens watch these events unfold. One explains to the other that by manipulating electricity, it is easy to turn neighbor against neighbor. Maple Street is typical and only the beginning. I loved this episode, but I love it now, and it illustrates perfectly how easily people will turn on each other.
Oh, absolutely.
How it doesn't take much.
So this was my number 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're going to hear a lot. I love this episode. Obviously, it's our favorites. This episode to me it really shows how people can be, how they end up losing trust with each other instead of coming together and saying, hey, let's work together and figure it out and keep our heads about us. They just kind of, I've said it before, I've said it again, one of my favorite quotes, Men in Black. And I'm going to paraphrase, but a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky animals. So yes, I feel like, again, such great moral lessons from the Twilight Zone.
Right on. How about your... No, actually, before we get into your next one, do you remember the first time you saw the Twilight Zone?
I was a kid. I don't remember exactly when, but I loved it.
Okay.
Yep. I just remember being on TV as a kid, and I just loved it.
Yeah, it's a great show. Yeah, I was young too.
I was going to say, what about you?
Yeah, I was young. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was young, and I can't remember the first episode I saw or anything like that. But I remember it was the music got me at first. It was the iconic music, which I'm gonna actually try to put into the episode here towards the end, and that's what got me at first, and that made me stop. I don't know if I was flipping through channels or whatever, but after that, whatever channel it was on, it was playing a bunch in a row. So I ended up seeing a couple of episodes, and then from there I was hooked. So, moving on, why don't we hear your number 9?
My number 9 is The Arrival, Season 3, Episode 2. And this is a mysterious plane, Flight 107 out of Buffalo, lands and taxis to a perfect stop with no luggage, no passengers, no crew, and no pilot. An FAA investigator, Grant Sheckley, with a record of no unsolved investigations in his 22-year career, examines the plane. He is with 2 executives of the airline, Malloy and Benston. And the names on the manifest seem very familiar to Sheckley. And another strange thing is no family or friends have contacted anyone at the airport. Even stranger, each man sees a different seat color on the plane and its serial code in a different sequence. Sheckley thinks the plane is causing some type of illusion, and to prove his point, he sticks his arm into the plane's running propeller. As he does, the plane disappears, as do Malloy and Benston. Sheckley finds the 2 men in the operations room of the airport, but neither men remember the incident that just happened, and they tell him that Flight 107 arrived on time. Benston then remembers a Flight 107 out of Buffalo that did disappear 17 years before, that got lost in the fog and was never found. And it was the one case Sheckley never solved. And it seems to have come back to remind him of this and haunt him.
It's so awesome.
So I love this episode because when I'm watching it, I remember, you know, the first time I saw it, and again, not watching it for a while and seeing it again, you're trying to figure out, like, okay, what the heck is going on here? And then once they do the thing where they're seeing different seat colors, it was just really fun to try to figure out what is happening. And then at the end, you have the eerie kind of ghostliness of the plane. And it ends up just like, is it an illusion? Is it his mind? Or was it really a ghost plane and something projecting that he really experienced in this? We don't know because it's the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Do you remember that episode?
I do remember. I don't remember it like all the intricacies and everything. I remember seeing it and I remember liking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not one of my favorites or anything. But I mean, it's a good. See, that's the thing. It's so hard to say if it's one of my whatever. Like I picked I guess my list was kind of like the ones that I really remember well and that like really affected me, ones that I wanted to go back and watch over and over again. Like that's how I kind of picked my top 10. But I remember the episode and it was, very good. And it's kind of one of those like with the plane disappearing and that kind of thing. Like I remember when I saw this episode for the first time is when I was young. I was probably early teens and I had just learned about the Bermuda Triangle. I remember taking a book out from our school library about the Bermuda Triangle, and I remember having the book, and I was in the middle of reading it, like right around the time I actually saw this episode for the first time. So I was like, "Whoa, this is cool," So yeah, pretty neat.
What is your number 9?
My number 9 is another season 1 episode. I've got a lot from season 1. A Stop at Willoughby.
I debated putting that one on.
I love this episode. During a meeting, Mr. Mizrell, William's boss, savagely dresses him down for losing an important automobile account. Riding home on the train, Williams has a dream in which he is on a very different train in July of 1880, entering a restful little town named Willoughby, a place, as the conductor tells him, where a man can slow down to a walk and live his life full measure. He realizes that he isn't made for the competitive life, that Willoughby is where he belongs. But when he tries to explain this to his wife, an acquisitive woman who sorely regrets her choice of husband, he receives only ridicule. Ultimately, the pressure of his job causes Williams to crack. When he calls his wife to tell her that he's quitting and to beg her to wait at home for him, she hangs up. On the commuter train, Williams feels devastated, his life a shambles. Miraculously, he suddenly finds himself back in Willoughby, where the townsfolk greet him warmly by name. He's home to stay. Meanwhile, the commuter train has come to a full stop. It seems that Mr. Williams, a regular passenger, shouted something about Willoughby, then jumped off the train to his death. The body is loaded into a hearse. The sign on the back, Willoughby Funeral Home. I love that episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. So good. And the best is the thing we didn't mention is how Rod Serling, who created the show, does the introductions at first, where he kind of sets the tone for you, lets you know the names of the characters, the setting, what's going on, kind of gives you a brief, and then at the very end, he comes in with the lesson of the episode or whatever. Like, he's got a real powerful closing line, and it always ends with "In the Twilight Zone." Excellent stuff.
And again, there's always the twist. Just about there's always that little kind of kick or spark or magic at the end. And this was one where it's like, oh, it's so nice, and of course you want to go there. And then it's like, oh. But yeah, it's funny how certain things are more alluring, but they're not always what they seem.
That's true.
All right, my number 8 is The Midnight Sun, Season 3, Episode 10. Norma and her neighbor, Mrs. Bronson, live in an apartment in New York City, though most of their neighbors have fled for cooler climates because the earth was thrown off its axis and is heading straight towards the sun. Norma and Mrs. Bronson are doing their best to cope with the irregular electricity and the increasing heat. A thirst-crazed man breaks into Norma's apartment and gulps down the little water she has before regaining his senses, and he begs for her forgiveness. As the heat increases, Mrs. Bronson becomes delirious and dies, while the heat just keeps getting worse. The heat becomes so intense that Norma's paintings begin to melt, and Norma screams and collapses. She awakes in a room to find it's cool, dark, and snowing, and it was all a feverish delusion, as the earth is not headed towards the sun, but instead far away from it.
I remember seeing that one and just being like, whoa.
It's like such a mind F, because I'm trying not to swear here. It's such a mind F because you're watching it, and I feel like they do such a good job, almost like making you feel the heat. Like the actors do a great job. They do so well with using the effects they have. It's like you can almost like imagine yourself in there feeling so hot. And then it almost, when she wakes up, brings relief, like, oh, it's not hot anymore. But instead it's the complete opposite. So either way, she's screwed. It's just, pick your poison, heat or cold.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such, man. That's the thing with all these episodes, most of them. The writing is so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good, and the actors are. I mean, the special effects are very minimal when they're actually needed, because there's so many of the episodes where they don't even really have special effects or a need for them, and they're just so well done. Masterful television. Masterful.
You did not need CGI.
No. All right, my number 8 pick, Back There. This is a season 2 episode as well. Actually, I forgot to. I'm reading the synopsises from the Twilight Zone Companion, the 2nd edition by Mark Zicree. Book is so good, it's so awesome. Lists like all kinds of cool factoids about each episode and everything. It's awesome. So in this particular one, he has the actual opening that Rod Serling. The narration from Rod Serling at the start of the episode. Witness a theoretical argument, Washington, D.C., the present. 4 intelligent men talking about an improbable thing like going back in time. A friendly debate revolving around a simple question. Could a human being change what happened before? Interesting and theoretical, because who ever heard of a man going back in time? Before tonight, that is. Because this is the Twilight Zone.
Love it.
So good. So it is April 14th, 1961. After discussing time travel at his men's club, Peter Corrigan suddenly feels an inexplicable dizziness. When it clears, he sees that he has moved back in time to April 14th, 1865, the date of Lincoln's assassination. In attempting to warn those at Ford's Theater, he succeeds only in getting himself arrested as either a drunk or a lunatic, A Mr. Wellington asks that Corrigan be remanded to his custody. Soon his motives become clear. Wellington is actually John Wilkes Booth, and he wants no interference. He takes Corrigan to his room and drugs him. By the time Corrigan revives, it is too late. Lincoln has been shot. He returns to the present, intent on telling his friends that the past can't be changed. But at the men's club, he gets a shock. William, formerly the attendant, is now a wealthy man. It turns out that his great-grandfather, the only policeman who believed Corrigan, gained a name for himself in trying to stop Lincoln's assassination, rose in politics, and became a millionaire. Corrigan has changed the past, but not in the way he intended. Mr. Peter Corrigan lately returned from a place back there, a journey into time with highly questionable results, proving on one hand that the threads of history are woven tightly and the skin of events cannot be undone. But on the other hand, there are small fragments of tapestry that can be altered. Tonight's thesis to be taken as you will in the Twilight Zone.
Anything with time travel is always really fun.
Always fun. Always fun.
Mm-hmm. My number 7 was The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and you already went over that.
Already
so do you want to
done,
go
yeah.
over your number 7?
My number 7. This was a fantastic episode from season 2 called The Howling Man.
I almost put that one on.
It's incredible that you didn't. The Howling Man. I love this episode. It's so good. I actually wanted to put this one a little higher, and now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, I kind of should have put this one a little bit higher. But number 7 is where this one is going to land. So, again, season 2, and this originally aired in November of 1960. The prostrate form of Mr. David Ellington, scholar, seeker of truth, and regrettably, finder of truth, a man who will shortly arise from his exhaustion to confront a problem that has tormented mankind since the beginning of time. A man who knocked on a door seeking sanctuary and found instead the outer edges of the Twilight Zone. During a walking trip of Central Europe following World War I, Ellington gets caught in the storm and loses his way. Exhausted and on the edge of delirium, he comes to a remote hermitage. At first, he is turned away, but when he passes out, the monks are forced to take him in. Upon reviving, he hears a bizarre howling, one which the brothers feign not to hear. Drawn by the sound, he comes upon a gentle-seeming bearded man locked in a cell. He has been imprisoned by Brother Jerome, the head of the order, whom the bearded man claims is insane. The prisoner begs to be released. Ellington confronts Jerome, who makes a startling revelation. The creature howling in the cell is no man, but the devil himself. He has been kept there for 5 years, held in place by the staff of truth that bars the cell door. Ellington tells Jerome that he accepts this explanation and pledges not to reveal this secret to the outside world, but as soon as he has a chance, he sneaks away to the cell and releases the prisoner, who immediately transforms into the devil and disappears in a flash of light and a puff of smoke. Soon after, World War II erupts. Realizing what he has done, Ellington devotes his life to recapturing the devil. Finally, he succeeds. As he leaves to make preparations to ship his captive back to the hermitage, he cautions his housekeeper to pay no heed to the howling, which will issue from behind the door secured with a tiny staff. As soon as he leaves, however, she lifts the small piece of wood away, and ominously the door swings open. Ancient folk saying, you can catch the devil, but you can't hold him long. Ask Brother Jerome. Ask David Ellington. They know, and they'll go on knowing in the end of their days and beyond, in the Twilight Zone.
That's what you call their F around and find out.
Yes. I remember when I first watched this one, and I remember being like, yeah, he's got to let him out. He's got to let him out. The devil. He's not there's no way. This guy can't be the devil. And sure enough, the guy lets him out. And yep, he's the devil. I remember being like, oh my, he really was the devil. What? Yes. Love that episode. It's excellent.
It is great.
And it's what's awesome too is that when he transforms into the devil, how he's got like the little horns on his head and everything. It's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
All right. My number 6 is The Invaders, Season 2, Episode 15.
That did not make my list, but
Oh.
it was this close, and I love that episode. It's so, I'll let you go into it.
Well,
it's so good.
I'll go over the synopsis, and then I want to go over why I love this one so much. A woman who lives alone hears a strange sound on her roof. As she investigates, she sees two tiny robot-like creatures emerge from a tiny flying saucer. The woman battles with these tiny aliens as they shoot her with their ray guns and even harm her with her own kitchen knives. The woman is able to kill one of them and destroys the saucer that's holding the remaining alien inside with an axe. But before he's killed, he's able to send a message to his home planet not to send more ships to this world of giants. The camera then shows the side of the saucer that reads USA. So we had talked about how good the acting is.
Mm-hmm.
I love this episode, especially because there's no actual dialogue.
There's none.
The woman the actress, the main actress, was it the mom on Bewitched?
Yes, I believe so.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, her name escapes me.
I'm blanking it. Agnes Moorehead, I think, maybe.
That
I
sounds
could be wrong.
that sounds like it could be correct.
So she only she did vocalization of grunts and groans. But her acting, she had to go all off her movement, her facial expressions. So
Agnes Moorehead, you were
yes,
correct. Sorry.
Thank you. And of course, then the end showing there's the twist. They're not aliens to us. They're, it would be like us going on another planet of giants, not little aliens coming to us.
So good.
Yeah, this is a really good episode. And I feel like this episode doesn't get a lot of the praise it deserves because there's no dialogue. I always felt like a lot of people didn't like it because there was no dialogue.
I remember the first time I saw it, and I didn't I'm waiting for someone to say something, and when it finally ends and it's just the Rod Serling narration's the only dialogue in the whole thing, I'm like, whoa, that was cool. That was crazy.
Because I know if I was that woman, I'd be going all Bruce Campbell, saying stuff out loud.
Sure.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness and Evil Dead. I'd just be talking to him and saying things. What do you have for your number 6?
My number 6. Will the Real Martian please stand up from season 2?
Yes, and that is actually my number 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You got it that high.
Yeah,
No kidding.
I love this one.
Would you like to do the synopsis for this one? Or would you like me to go ahead and do it?
It's up to you. You can do it.
Wintry February night, the present. Order of events, a phone call from a frightened woman notating the arrival of an unidentified flying object, and the checkout you've just witnessed with 2 state troopers verifying the event, but with nothing more enlightening to add beyond evidence of some tracks leading across the highway to a diner. You've heard of trying to find a needle in a haystack? Well, stay with us now, and you'll be part of an investigating team whose mission is not to find that proverbial needle. No, their task is even harder. They've got to find a Martian in a diner, and in just a moment, you'll search with them because you've just landed in the Twilight Zone. Troopers Perry and Paget follow the tracks from a frozen pond in which something may have landed. In the diner, they encounter a soda jerk, a bus driver, and his 7 passengers, all of whom seem perfectly human. Only problem is that the driver is certain only 6 people originally got on his bus. Someone is not what he seems. 2 married couples are automatically eliminated from suspicion because there's only 1 extra person. That leaves 3 suspects: an edgy, middle-aged businessman impatient to make his meeting in Boston, an attractive professional dancer who has no identification, and a wild-eyed, eccentric old man. The troopers try to narrow it down even further, but are hampered by a jukebox starting up, lights flickering on and off, and items on the tables flipping over, all seemingly of their own accord. A call comes from the county engineer. A decaying bridge has been declared safe. The bus can continue on its way. Reluctantly, the troopers give up the chase, since they can't hold somebody on suspicion of being a monster. The passengers board the bus and depart, escorted by the trooper's patrol car. A little later, the businessman returns. The bridge wasn't safe. It collapsed and he alone survived. The phone call was merely an illusion. He is the Martian. Advanced scout of an invasion force. Smugly, he drinks a cup of coffee and smokes a cigarette using all 3 of his arms. But the soda jerk has a surprise for him. He's a Venusian, and his invasion force has intercepted the Martian fleet. Grinning from ear to ear, he removes his cap, revealing a 3rd eye. The real Martian has stood up and had the rug pulled out from under him. An incident on a small island to be believed or disbelieved. However, if a sour-faced dandy named Ross or a big good-natured counterman who handles a spatula as if he'd been born with one in his mouth, if either of these 2 entities walks onto your premises, you'd better hold their hands, all 3 of them. Or check the color of their eyes, all 3 of them. The gentleman in question might try to pull you into the Twilight Zone.
So what is it about that episode that you love?
What I loved about it was the whole, who is it? Like the
who done it
kind of. Yeah, that whole part of it was so good. And then the twist at the end where there's another alien there. It's not a Martian, it's a Venusian. He's got 3 eyes. Like when he takes the hat off his head and you're just like, what the that's the best.
Exactly.
The best.
Yes. And that's exactly what I love. Because I was going to say, love the whodunit, like trying to figure it out.
Yes.
But then it's not just like the Martian who shows up and then his 3rd arm and hand.
Yeah.
But it's when the Venusian, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, because at first, like, okay, so that's who it is. Cool. But then the Venusian, and it's like, ooh, it just one-upped itself in the episode. And he has the 3rd eye. And I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, just the coolest, like, even when you watch it now, and it probably helps that it's in black and white because you can't really see the detail as much, I guess. But even if you watch it now or see a picture of it, it still looks pretty good. Like, it's good makeup. However they did it. It was really well done.
Fantastic. All right. I'm going to go to my number 5. I have People Are Alike All Over. This is season 1, episode 26. Mission Commander Mark Markuson and biologist Sam Conrad embark on a journey to Mars, with Markuson being the optimist, thinking there's nothing to worry about because God makes everyone in his image. Conrad is more skeptical. Their ship crashes on Mars and Markuson dies. Conrad is left alone, only to find human-like beings on Mars who seem friendly and intelligent. They offer him a home and all the comforts of life on Earth. The catch is, the doors are all locked and there are no windows. It's only too late he discovers he is living in a zoo and he's the exhibit, only proving Mission Commander Markuson right. People really are alike all over. What I love about this episode is it's like, damn, you got to be so right about people. Because granted, I think if it was the opposite case, if somebody from another planet came here and they looked like us, I'm sure like whoever would be dissecting them or probably keeping them in isolation, studying and observe them, not put them in a zoo. But it really does speak to the human condition and how people are. Oh, let's put it on display. Look at this. Not treating it as an equal to us because humans think they are the most superior.
I can honestly tell you I have no recollection of this episode.
Oh, I love this one.
All.
And that's the one. Roddy McDowell is Sam Conrad.
Oh, okay.
From Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's the thing. There was a lot of people. I mean, the show went over 5 seasons. There's like 180 episodes or something like that. And
like season 5 has 35 episodes. So.
Yeah, so they and I mean like William Shatner, Bill Mumy before he was in Lost in Space. You were mentioning the Agnes Moorehead, who went on to go and star in Bewitched. Lee Marvin, Burgess Meredith. Like so many people were in this show that had like roles. It was really, really good.
What do you have for your number 5?
My number 5 is a season 5 episode. And yes, it's only my number 5. People listening will be like, well, that's the only number 5? Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
Ooh.
This is probably one of the more famous episodes, and it was redone again in the Twilight Zone movie that came out in 1984.
That was awesome.
And with John Lithgow playing the role that William Shatner plays in this episode. Portrait of a frightened man, Mr. Robert Wilson, 37, husband, father, and salesman on sick leave. Mr. Wilson has just been discharged from a sanitarium where he spent the last 6 months recovering from a nervous breakdown, the onset of which took place on an evening not dissimilar to this one, on an airliner very much like the one in which Mr. Wilson is about to be flown home. The difference being that, on that evening half a year ago, Mr. Wilson's flight was terminated by the onslaught of his mental breakdown. Tonight, he's traveling all the way to his appointed destination, which, contrary to Mr. Wilson's plan, happens to be in the darkest corner of the Twilight Zone. While looking out his window while the plane is in flight, Wilson sees a bulky, furred creature land on the wing. At first, he doubts his own sanity, but soon he comes to believe the evidence of his eyes. The creature is a gremlin, and it means to sabotage one of the engines. Unfortunately, it flies out of sight whenever Wilson summons his wife or the stewardess, and the flight engineer refuses to heed his warnings to keep a close watch on the wings. Wilson realizes he must act alone, and, seeing that the gremlin has already forcibly torn back one of the cowling plates, he must act quickly. He removes a pistol from a sleeping policeman, then throws open an emergency door and empties the gun into the gremlin. Mortally wounded, it is swept off the wing. Later, Wilson is taken off the plane in a straitjacket. "It's all right now, darling," his wife reassures him. "I know," he replies, "but I'm the only one who does know right now." The flight of Mr. Robert Wilson is ended now, a flight not only from point A to point B, but also from the fear of recurring mental breakdown. Mr. Wilson has that fear no longer, though. For the moment, he is, as he has said, alone in his assurance. Happily, his conviction will not remain isolated too much longer, for, happily, tangible manifestation is very often left as evidence of trespass, even from so intangible a quarter as the Twilight Zone. So good.
Yeah, I do think that's probably one
So
of the
good.
most famous episodes. And of course, everyone quotes Shatner, "There's something on the wing."
Yes.
Like how they do that. And I have to say, though, I think I really like in the Twilight Zone movie, I like the remake more.
I did as well, and I remember I saw the Twilight Zone. I saw that movie before I saw this particular episode, the original episode. So I guess seeing the episode, it was kind of tainted by having seen the movie first. But I mean, obviously the story's it's essentially the same, and obviously 30 years later, 20 years later, whatever, the movie, the effects were better. It was better budget, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was.
Well, in the movie, I love it. It's actually the very end that I love, where Dan Aykroyd is the ambulance driver, and he goes in, and there's like that twist with Dan Aykroyd, like, because he's
That's right.
Yeah, he's
That's
kind of
right.
like a creature or something, and the ambulance drives off with Creedence Clearwater Revival Midnight Special.
That's right.
And I don't know, there was something about the end, the way that they did it, and it was so creepy and cool that I think that's why I like the movie more. I love and appreciate that episode, but the movie, it was just the very, very end that just really did it for me.
Yeah. What have you got for your number? Are we on 4 now?
We're on 4.
4? All right. What is your number 4?
I Sing the Body Electric, season
good
3, episode 35. Just like going over this episode, I get really choked up.
Okay.
It like, oh my God, this episode tugs at my heartstrings. It makes me cry. So I'll try to get through the synopsis tear-free.
All right.
No, seriously, when I watch this, I freaking bawl.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
A widower, George, has 3 children who he feels needs maternal love after their mother recently passed. He decides to order a cybernetic grandmother that seems human in almost every way. 2 of his children, Karen and Tom, embrace her, but one, Anne, resists because she's still grieving from the loss of her mother while also resenting her mom for dying. One day, Anne blindly runs into the street and is nearly hit by a vehicle, but Grandma saves her, taking the hit. Grandma shows Anne that she cannot die and will never leave her as her mom did. Anne finally accepts Grandma and the children, and they grow into wonderful, happy young adults. As they get ready for college, Grandma tells them it's time for her to go back to the factory where she was made, as her job is complete. And the title, I Sing the Body Electric, that comes from a poem by Walt Whitman that celebrates different aspects of human physicality. So I didn't know that. So when I was a kid and I watched this episode, there was something about the title that I just loved, and it really resonated with me. And I think the reason why I love this so much is because it really shows, like, you see, like, there are these kids feeling like they lost their mom, and this person, but she's not actually a person, comes in, and but she seems like a person in every single way. She gives them the love, she gives them the care, and she takes care of them, and she can't leave them, which is what especially that kid Anne needs. And it's just so beautiful, because this was like one of the Twilight Zones. There was no twist. There was no, like, it was just the magic of the episode of just a kind of feel good, happy episode where, like, these kids get what they need. And I was like, man, obviously it's not really a robot, it's a woman playing a robot acting like a human, but it felt just so warm and loving in that episode. And I love it so much.
Those type of episodes, they do exist in the series. There's very few of them. But yeah, this one was definitely, it's a good episode for sure. I could see why you rated it so highly. It did not make my list, but I did enjoy it. I do enjoy that episode. Anytime it's on, I'll check it out. Well, when I say when it's on, we don't have cable anymore, but when it used to be on, when we have cable, I'd watch it if it was on. All right, now it's time for my number.
Your number 4.
4. I know you know this one. This one is from the 3rd season, To Serve Man.
Oh my gosh, that is my number 1.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, then we can both talk about it. Respectfully submitted for your perusal. A Canamit. Height, a little over 9 feet. Weight, in the neighborhood of 350 pounds. Origin, unknown. Motives, therein hangs the tale. For in just a moment, we're going to ask you to shake hands, figuratively, with a Christopher Columbus from another galaxy and another time. This is the Twilight Zone. The Canamits arrive on Earth with seemingly one purpose in mind, to aid mankind in every possible way using their superior technology. They end famine, supply a cheap power source, and provide defensive force fields. Armies become obsolete. Although some distrust them, the Canamites appear totally altruistic, a fact supported by a Canamit book left at the UN. Once translated, the title reads, To Serve Man. Thousands book passage to the Canamites' home planet, including Michael Chambers, a U.S. decoding expert. Meanwhile, however, his assistant Pat is trying to translate the Canamit book's text. As Chambers prepares to board ship, Pat frantically rushes up. She succeeded in her attempts. To Serve Man is a cookbook.
Can I read it? Because, like, that's my favorite part of the movie.
It's a show, not a movie.
I'm sorry, the episode. She's like, and I'll try to do my best, but I quote it all the time. Mr. Chambers, don't get on that ship. The rest of the book. To Serve Man, it's a cookbook. Oh, I love it.
Chambers tries to escape, but a Canamite forces him into the ship, which then blasts off. Helplessly, Chambers finds himself bound for another planet and some alien's dinner table. The recollections of one Michael Chambers with appropriate flashbacks and soliloquy, or more simply stated, the evolution of man, the cycle of going from dust to dessert, the metamorphosis from being the ruler of a planet to an ingredient in someone's soup. It's tonight's bill of fare on The Twilight Zone. Freaking love that episode.
Like I literally quote this anytime
all the time.
I hear like a cookbook. I'm like, it's a cookbook. And nobody knows what I'm talking about.
And the actor that plays the main Canamete, Richard Keel, he was the guy that was he was in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
That was him. I didn't realize it was him.
Nail in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. This episode, it's, again, you be careful what you wish for. Oh, everything seems so great, but is everything as good as it appears? This advanced alien race wants to help us. Why? What are they getting out of it? If they're that much more advanced.
If something appears too good to be true,
it probably is. Thank you.
There's the moral of the story.
And then, Mr. Chambers is on this ship knowing he's on the menu. And basically the whole thought of at the end of, well, whether it's here on the ship or on Earth, sooner or later, I'm going to be on the menu. And, he kind of takes it for what it is. But it's so interesting to think like, man, what if you were in that position? Like, what do you do? How do you fight back?
You kind of screwed at that point. You're on the ship heading to their home planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's and doesn't he just gives up at the end? He's just like, whatever.
Well, I'm going to be on the menu either way, so I might as well eat. I'd be like, can I have a knife to cut my food, please?
Yeah, right.
I don't know how to fly a spaceship, but I'll try to take it over. Try to go all die hard. Come to Canamit, they said. Have a few drinks. I'm fucked up the quote, but I would just try to do my best to infiltrate everybody and get it out alive and save the humans.
Infiltrate everybody? Okay.
The Canamits.
The Canamits. Excellent. All right. We're down to our top three.
Top three.
And we've already, okay. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Time Enough at Last.
That's my number 1. Damn it.
Season 1, episode 8.
That's my number 1.
You've been getting all mine. I finally got one of yours.
Yep. Wow.
And I quote this movie all the time too.
It's an episode.
Why do I keep saying movie? My goodness.
Damn you with your movie.
They're little movies in my mind. They're all like little mini movies.
Enough. And it's funny because I think the first 4 seasons were all 25 minutes, or the first 3 seasons, they were all 25 minutes long. And then was it, I believe, season 4 where they bumped them up to 51 minutes. And then the final season 5, they dropped it back down to 25 minutes. So you had that one season where they were about an hour long.
All right. A bank teller, Henry Bemis, loves to read, but he can never find enough time between work at his bank and his wife not ever letting him read. One day he sneaks into the bank's vault during his lunch hour to read, and he ends up getting knocked out by a massive shock wave. When he comes to, he leaves the vault only to discover the world was destroyed by nuclear war and there's no one left but him. At first, he becomes scared and distraught being all alone, but then he finds the ruins of the library. He is finally happy, and as long as he can read, he is happy, and he can read as much as he wants. And I want to say, just interrupting the synopsis, because I want to give the quote here. He's at the library. He's surrounded by his books, and he says, the very best thing of all is there's time now. There's all the time I need and all the time I want. Time. There's time enough at last. And as he sits outside thinking that, surrounded by those books, he accidentally breaks his glasses.
Drops his glasses and breaks them.
Yep.
Yeah. That is like because it's Burgess Meredith plays the
Harry Bemis.
Harry Bemis, yes. And he's so good in the role.
Oh my
and
God.
He's just so he's just quirky but likable. And
he seems like a sweet guy.
Yeah, and you
feel bad
you
because
feel
like his
so bad.
wife is such a you know what.
Yes.
And his boss is kind of a prick.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah. So and all the guy wants to do is just wants to read his books. Like he enjoys reading.
His wife won't even let him read the freaking paper.
Yeah. But yeah, at the very end, it's like, oh, good, the guy. Wow,
Yes.
all right, you're like rooting for the guy, you know.
Right?
And now he gets what he's like always wanted, and then he breaks his glass. It's like, oh
I
no.
would be wandering around trying to find glasses.
No. Yeah. So that was my top. That was my top favorite.
Your number one.
That was my number one. That's what I had.
It is a great one.
Yeah. It's excellent. Love
all right,
that episode.
what is your number 3?
The Eye of the Beholder.
Now, can I just say that
Please.
I added this to my list to mention after if you did not, because our oldest son, this is his absolute favorite episode.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Suspended. This is one of the first Twilight Zone episodes I ever saw, and it was the mutant faces that like freaked me out when I was younger.
I thought they were cool looking.
When I was a kid, I was like, what the heck is going on?
I thought they were neat.
Suspended in time and space for a moment, your introduction to Miss Janet Tyler, who lives in a very private world of darkness, a universe whose dimensions are the size, thickness, length of a swath of bandages that cover her face. In a moment, we'll go back into this room, and also in a moment, we'll look under those bandages, keeping in mind, of course, that we're not to be surprised by what we see, because this isn't just a hospital, and patient 307 is not just a woman. This happens to be the Twilight Zone, and Miss Tyler, with you, is about to enter it. That was the other thing. This was one of the first episodes where he didn't end the introduction with the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Lying in a darkened hospital room, her head entirely wrapped in bandages, Janet Tyler, whose hideously abnormal face has made her an outcast all her life, waits to see if the last treatment has succeeded in making her look normal. This is her 11th hospital visit, the maximum allowed by the state. If it is a failure, she will be sent to a village where others of her kind are segregated. Unseen by her, only heard, the shadowy figures of her doctor and her nurse come and go. On televisions throughout the hospital, the leader of the state speaks of glorious conformity as Miss Tyler's bandages are gradually removed. Revealed, her face is extremely beautiful. The doctor draws back in horror. The treatment has been a failure. As the lights are turned on, we see the faces of the others, misshapen, asymmetrical, like something out of a nightmare. Crying hysterically, Miss Tyler runs from her room, down several hallways, and finally into her room where she comes face to face with another freak, Walter Smith, a strikingly handsome man in charge of an outcast village in the north. He has come to take her there. Gently, he assures her that she will come to have a sense of belonging and that she will be loved. He advises her to remember the old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Now, the questions that come to mind. Where is this place and when is it? What kind of world where ugliness is the norm and beauty the deviation from that norm? The answer is, it doesn't make any difference, because the old saying happens to be true. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. In this year or 100 years hence, on this planet or wherever there is human life, perhaps out among the stars, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Lesson to be learned in the Twilight Zone.
This is a great episode. I love the pig. They're like pig faces, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they did such a cool job with the way they did the shadow to show like the eyes, but nothing else.
It's shot so well. It's shot so well. This is like, to me, I'm not a film student or anything like that, but like I think it's like a perfect example of just camera angles, lighting, and how important it is and how much it can help you shape a story. So well done.
Absolutely. And one thing I think about when we watch movies now, I think about how shows like the Twilight Zone and movies, you know, way back in the 50s and 60s, the stuff they were able to do with practical effects compared to like everyone just goes to CGI now. And to me, it really is an art form.
Absolutely.
The makeup, the effects, the way things are shot, the lighting, and even the acting. It's almost like a lost art.
Yeah, agreed. And it's funny because like so much of the stuff now, you can tell, even if it's got a big budget, you can still tell when it's CGI.
Yeah.
It's just not the same. Hopefully Hollywood and whoever, hopefully they realize that and they start going back to more practical type stuff.
All right. So you already said my number 2, which is Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? So what is your number 2?
My number 2 is from season 5, and it is called Living Doll.
This is a fun one.
I love this episode. Talkie Tina, a doll that does everything. A lifelike creation of plastic and springs and painted smile. To Eric Streetor, she is a most unwelcome addition to his household, but without her, he'd never enter the Twilight Zone. Eric is displeased when his wife Annabelle buys an expensive doll for his stepdaughter Christy, and even more displeased when the doll tells him it doesn't like him.
I don't like you.
Yeah. Initially, he suspects trickery, but as the doll repeatedly vocalizes its hatred of him, though only when the two of them are alone, he comes to believe it really is alive. He throws it in the garbage, but it escapes and phones him with a death threat. To save himself, Eric tries to burn the doll and saw off its head, but both attempts fail. He throws it back in the trash, trapping it with weights. But his actions have convinced Annabelle he's insane. She's taking Christy and leaving. In order to placate her, Eric, by now doubting his own senses, agrees to return the doll to Christy. But late that night, investigating a sound, Eric trips on the doll and falls down the stairs to his death. Horrified, Annabelle rushes to him and picks up the doll. My name is Talkie Tina, it tells her, and you'd better be nice to me. Of course, we all know dolls can't really talk, and they certainly can't commit murder. But to a child caught in the middle of turmoil and conflict, a doll can become many things. Friend, defender, guardian, especially a doll like Talkie Tina, who did talk and did commit murder in the misty region of the Twilight Zone.
That was a good one.
I love that episode. Mm-hmm. So good.
Now, there's a movie, I forget what it's called now. Is it like Megan or something? Where like this woman makes like a kind of like an AI robotic kind of doll. And her daughter has like the prototype, and it, I guess, like based off, we haven't watched it, but it kind of protects the girl. And I'm like, I wonder if they got that idea from this episode.
Oh, I'm sure. Probably had some. I'm sure it had some influence, if not was the inspiration for it or something. Is that what that's about? That movie? I've seen
I think so. Yeah, we saw like a preview.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember. I didn't remember what it was about or anything, but I remember it was like a doll, like a killer doll or something.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
All right. And my number 1, I had To Serve Man, which was your number 4. So what is your number 1, Alex?
Time Enough at Last.
That's right.
So we both did our number 1s already. We had a lot that were not duplicates though. So I'm really surprised. I thought we'd have a lot more duplicates.
I just want to ask, what were some of your honorable mentions?
I had season 2's Nick of Time, The Invaders, and Long Distance Call.
That's a good one. Yeah.
With Billy Mooney, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Where he gets the calls from his grandmother and everything. Yeah.
I had season 5's The Bewitching Pool, season 4 Jezebel, and season 5 The Masks.
What's the Bewitching Pool? Is that the one where the kids jump in and they go like...
So these two kids, their parents are getting a divorce, and they're swimming in the pool, and they find this portal, and it brings them to like this like pond or something, and it's this place where there are a bunch of kids around,
That's right.
There's not a lot of adults, and there's Aunt T. And Auntie kind of takes care of the kids, and she tells the kids just to stay there. But one of the siblings wants to go back home. So he tells Auntie that, no, our parents are being nice to us now, because Auntie says, if your parents are nice, you can just stay here. And they end up going back.
I remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which one is the masks? I don't think I've seen that one.
That's the one where a millionaire invites his greedy heirs to a party, but they have to wear masks that are they're really ugly and grotesque. He says they represent your true selves. And the family refuses to put on these masks because they're so disgusted. Like, how dare you think of us like that? But he tells them, if you don't, I'm going to take you out of the inheritance. So they all put on the masks. And then the Jason, the millionaire, dies. So they're like, oh gosh, we can finally take these off now. When they take off the masks, their face now looks just like the masks did.
That's right. I remember that now. Yeah. That's right. Okay. That's good stuff. Yeah. Good stuff. So there you have it. Our top 10 Twilight Zone episodes with some honorable mentions tossed in there as well. I was going to I said earlier I was going to put the Twilight Zone music in, but you reminded me we can't because of YouTube. So, sorry, folks. You could find the music, I'm sure. And
watch the Twilight Zone.
Just watch the darn Twilight Zone.
It.
We have Paramount Plus. We mentioned that previously. We have Paramount Plus, and all those episodes, all 5 seasons, are incomplete on that streaming service. So you can check that out there if you'd like.
Or you can just buy the tangible DVDs.
Just buy I bought the Blu-rays a while ago. I first bought the complete series on DVD, and then when it came out on Blu-ray, I was like, what? And they released them one season at a time. So I waited till all 5 seasons came out, and I bought the complete series on Blu-ray. And they got so many extras on there. I'll never have time to watch it, all of them. It's crazy.
You won't have time enough at last.
I won't have time enough at last to watch all the extras that are on there. They have all kinds of stuff. They have commercials. They have there's commentaries with different actors. They have the radio plays on there. They have all kinds of these bonus features on the Blu-rays. So if you've got some money to spare, pick those up. They're definitely worth it. So
yeah, and please feel free to tell us if we missed an episode that you think is the absolute best episode of the Twilight Zone. Share it with us. Share with us the ones that you love. Were there any that you didn't like? There were, to me, Twilight Zone episodes that I wasn't necessarily in love with, but I don't think I hated any episodes.
I think the season where they went to an hour, those were. They kind of seemed like they fell off a little bit, but they were still good. They weren't bad or anything. They weren't horrible, but they just they set the bar really high with those first couple of seasons, and it was just so well done. And just I guess when it's not as good, it's kind of a letdown, but it's still good if you watched it on its own, without prior knowledge of the other seasons. That season's pretty good still, but. Yeah, great show.
Absolutely,
great show. If you ever I don't know what to watch that.
Watch the Twilight
They're
Zone.
so good. Get past the black and white. It doesn't matter. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, or
no? Just like I said, share with us your favorite Twilight Zone episodes. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. You said if we missed any, or of course we missed some.
Well,
there's so many.
If you so strongly feel
they should have been on our top 10.
favorite should have been on our top, then you should tell us. We want to know.
Why not?
It's so fun because we're probably gonna be oh my gosh, that one is so good.
Probably. I'm thinking of some now.
Me too.
I did,
well, there was some I'm this one's so cool too, and yeah.
All right. Well. Until next time, I am the Golden Greek Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous wife, Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker podcast.
We love hearing from and interacting with our hearers and watchers. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter
@HomewreckerPod.
You can also visit our website,
homewreckerpodcast.com.
where you can check out past episodes and pick up some Homewrecker podcast gear from our online store.
Also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're hearing or watching our show. That way you can be notified whenever a new episode drops. We're on all major podcasting platforms, and you can check out the video versions of our show at YouTube and Brighteon.
You can also find Monique in a few places online as well.
I'm on Twitter @_Monique Giselle_. If you're interested in a tarot reading, organite, incense, candles, and other cool things, you can go to my website, tarotbymonique.com. Or if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can go to innerstandingshypnosis.com to schedule a free 20-minute consult. And follow me on Twitter @MoniquePCHT. And Alex, how can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @TheAlexArion, and you can check out my website, alexarionfitness.com.
And if that's too much to remember, we get it. That's why we put it all in our show notes.
Thanks for spending your time with us, and we appreciate all of your support.
We do. Thank you. We love you. Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Inner Standings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.